Welcome to Cash is King, how multinationals are dealing with national crisis funding. My name is Michael Bach. I'm the head of consulting and implementation at Bellin.
And my name is Katja Franz. I'm a consulting director in the consulting and implementation team of Bellin. The theoretic textbook scenario pandemic has come to life. The markets have never faced a situation like this before. Even the great financial crisis is not really comparable, as the disruption then originated in one industry only. This is a very unusual situation we are facing today. Normally, not everyone is in trouble at the same time, as it is the case now, where only the level of being affected might be different depending on your industry or nation. This means you don't only need to have an eye on your own situation, but also watch out for your suppliers and clients, as well as the markets in general. You're also competing with everyone else for funding from banks, capital markets, and also national emergency funds.
What happened throughout the last weeks? What is our experience? We have been in close contact with many corporates in all industries since the start of the crisis. Everybody busy with similar challenges, tasks to gather and verify information they can bank and rely on. The old saying, cash is king, is turning out to be still true today and gains even more importance compared to the last months, years. Cash management activities are key in this situation, even if often neglected, as it is not as glamorous as currency hedging or strategic risk management approaches. Also, the long-term version of cash management, liquidity planning and forecasting, has not been popular in the last years, especially when corporates weren't in desperate need of financing or even were in the lucky position to have a stable level of excess liquidity. In a situation like that, spending time on introducing centralized cash positioning and liquidity forecasting procedures did not seem pressing enough and simply did not seem beneficial enough. So amongst the corporates we are in contact with, a basic distinction can be done on whether a proper system-based cash and liquidity planning procedure has already been established or not. This might make a vital difference, especially when seeking additional financing options.
So what can you do right now if you have been caught unaware? Simply, you need as much cash visibility as you can get by any means possible. Ideally, you have a TMS that provides you with group-wide real-time data. But in times of crisis, the clear message is anything is better than nothing. If it means being on the phone for hours to get data from all your subsidiaries, then so be it. Get that data, even if it's tedious and even if it's incomplete. Do short-term cash management the best you can using the 80-20 rule, trying to cover as much as you can. The other important rule, talk. Talk to banks, your entities, suppliers, clients. Stay in contact and communicate so you all know what's happening. You're all part of an extremely vulnerable supply chain and a very unusual scenario. If one party crashes out, the whole supply chain breaks down and everyone else might go down as well.
In this crisis, what you can still do is set up some kind of basic liquidity planning. Again, this is no match for a system-driven comprehensive setup, but it is better than nothing. Even if you only have two categories, incoming and outgoing cash flows, this still teaches you at least 4 things when later on comparing this very fundamental liquidity planning to what is going on account statement level. Do the best you can. Even a little bit will make a difference. In a time when everyone is competing for funding, being able to show some insights from your cash management and at least basic liquidity planning might make the difference between getting funding from a bank or not. They want to see that you are trying, that you have put in some thought, that you have some kind of idea what's likely to happen to your company. What are the main drivers? What are your dependencies in terms of the supply chain? Try and have a closer eye on payments across the group. Monitor your entities in terms what are they doing, what are they processing, and even trying to centralize some things if possible.
What can you do after the crisis? There will be lessons learned for everyone. We know companies who for years haven't bothered with liquidity planning and risk management because they were sure they had plenty of cash. One lesson from the crisis is that everyone should view cash management as an element of risk management. Just because I have the money doesn't mean I can necessarily meet my obligations tomorrow. We've finally seen what happens when the pandemic textbook scenario finally comes into life. The lesson is prepare for the worst when things are going well. After the crisis is the time to revisit technology and processes. Do you want to invest in a TMS? How can you optimize your liquidity planning? Do you want to introduce intercompany netting? Do you really need 80 bank connectivities?
So we took a look on being caught unaware. Being prepared solves everything? Not really. But those companies that have cash visibility have a head start. They can trust their data and focus more on strategic decision making that follows from it. They don't need to spend precious time collating data. Time and data are currently the most precious resources. No one knows what's going to happen, but at least with good preparation, you are not completely blind. These companies can be a lot more granular in their scenarios, as they don't need to worry about the bottom line. So this leaves a lot of more headroom for individual interaction. Liquidity planning now pays off. Use shorter planning intervals to speed and to enrich your liquidity planning.
At the moment, everyone is trying to get funding. So it pays off to have had a good relationship with your banks and financing partners, and also with internal contacts across the group in the past. You might even be able to give some guidance and discuss the current situation in depth. Knowing both your external and your internal funding structures is enormously helpful. You also have the time now to consider other funding options, for example, capital markets. But no matter how well prepared you were, there are always lessons to be learned. For example, you really need to stress test your backup plans. If you have a credit line in place but never draw down, you have no way of knowing it will hold in times of crisis. Make use of the lines in good times as well, just to test them.
Also in good times, run scenarios. Determine where your comfort level is, where your minimum requirements are. Use the figures you have to look at everything, to broaden everything, to analyze, to do deep dive on every data given. Make sure you not just assess your risk appetite, but also your overall risk capacity. How much do I need as the bare minimum? What are my internal and external debt obligations? These are questions you will have the time for when being back in good times. Take another look at your banking relationships. What paid off in the crisis? Who proved a reliable partner in challenging times? Do you want to consider capital markets more closely moving forward? What is the implication on enhancing your financing levels to capital markets? What is needed from a legal and from an internal structure perspective?
But back to the current crisis situation. Whether prepared or not, one option available now for everyone are national emergency funds. So are they the answer for everyone? Many countries have put in place great schemes. Just to mention two examples, in the UK, the COVID corporate financing facility has been set up by the Bank of England. And in Germany, we have the coronavirus aid loans for companies.
However, there are complex requirements and interdependencies that make this a real struggle. Perhaps participating in one state program would inhibit a corporate subsidiary to participate in other countries' financing programs. This might even lead to unusual events, such as splitting off entities or founding financing companies to enable participation in several countries' funding programs to ensure the continuation of the business at all. It is therefore not possible to give a best practice recommendation, as funding really needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis and considering the foundation existing at the corporate, which is the existing cash management and liquidity forecasting processes and tools. The funding programs are not mere charity programs, but deemed to support sound businesses which need to navigate through rough macroeconomic times.
You can find more on Bellin.com or just get in touch with us.
Hope to see you in person soon, for example, at next year's ACT. Stay safe and healthy.
Bye-bye.